Let's talk about copywriting and AI generated slop. There's just so much I want to say about this, and it's really, really important if you're trying to copyright that you understand some of these things. Okay, so the reason I really started thinking about this is a few weeks ago, like a while ago, one of my mentors had posted this thing on Facebook, and he was basically asking people to share the most the telltale signs that they've recognized in AI generated writing. So you know what I'm talking about. Like there are those specific words that they love to use, the specific turns of phrase, little metaphors that they like using, even uh, uh, structural rhythmical stuff that they do, the AI engines when they're writing. And it becomes almost like a signature, right? Where you can kind of tell, or I think most people today can tell that something was written by AI, or at least most people that I talk to can sort of have a pretty good read on if something that they are reading, if it was written by a human or not, at least in the very, in most cases where people just generate something and post it, right? It's like a volume game. And so he actually, I think, first of all, this is a really cool thing that he did, because he was basically crowdsourcing all these don'ts, right? Like don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, so that he could feed them as instructions to his LLM to do not write like this, so that when he does use AI to generate writing, it doesn't sound like AI, which is really smart. But it really got me thinking, damn, everybody, what is the problem with this, right? Is everybody sounds the same. It's I think we went through this curve as humanity, where in the beginning there was a lot of excitement about the capabilities, right? Oh my God, I can write so much and I can write so well. And it's basically effortless. So I am this efficiency barrier has essentially been unlocked, right? And then, as time went on and everybody started using these tools and everybody started kind of sounding the same because they all sound like the AI itself, there's a little bit of the tolerance for AI created pieces has sort of gone down. But I actually think it's important to talk about or think about the copywriting aspect of this, and not just general writing, yes or no, to use AI, right? Because if you think about it, right, there's a reason why AI and all these LLMs converged to writing a certain way when prompted to write copy, marketing copy, right? There's a reason why it uses those words. There's a reason why it uses a specific cadence. There's a reason why it uses certain spacing. There's a reason why it does all the things it does. And the reason is because that is considered good copy. A lot of these things are actually, if you spend some time reading AI generated copy pieces, a lot of the way that they sound and the way that they're written, they sound like really good copy. They sound aesthetically, I guess is the way to call it. They sound like how you would expect a student of copy to write, or a copywriter, a professional copywriter to write. Now, why did I say aesthetically? Because the thing is, with these, there's two problems. Okay, one is the aesthetic problem, which is a lot of times, a lot of times, and this is, I see this, sometimes my clients will send me copy that they've written for editing, and it is just so clear to me that they put it through the machine and never even bothered editing it. Why? Because it sounds so good. It looks so good. That's why I call it aesthetic, right? You just like looking at this piece of writing and you're like, wow, this sounds so good. This like looks so good. This is some solid writing, right? But then like if you actually try to, with like in terms of comprehension, right? If you try to just like understand what it says, walk away from the piece, and then take a pen and paper and try to summarize what you just read, you can't. And the reason you can't is because it said absolutely fucking nothing, and you're like, I don't, you feel like you got a trick played on you almost, right? Because you're like, I don't know what happened. Like it sounded so compelling. I have no idea what it said. Like I cannot repeat the main points because there were none. I cannot like tell you why I thought it was so good, but I just remember it was so good. It's like this feeling, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And that is the first problem, with AI generated writing in general, is that like it's just completely meaningless, and that extends to copywriting. Even though aesthetically it looks like something a good solid copywriter would create. And the other thing, like there's actually like a deeper problem, because you can sort of bypass that with editing. You can sort of bypass that with clarifying the main message to yourself well enough before you send it to the AI, and then you can make sure that it still hits. But I think like the other problem, and the reason why we are at such an interesting point in time, is because these things have basically allowed everybody to sound like a copywriter, like a good copywriter, right? But the thing is, like, just because you sound like a copywriter doesn't mean that you are one. And I think it's important to not forget that. It's important to be very cognizant of your actual skill level and not fall into the trap of thinking that because you have written a compelling seeming piece, or, and this is important, even a piece that worked in terms of conversion, just because the AI has enabled you to do those things does not yet make you an expert copywriter. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying this as like someone gatekeeping copywriting or anything like that. I'm just naming what I see. Okay? And this is what I see. Marketing has always been largely about getting people's attention and then, converting that attention down the line. And so the good copy, right? The copy that all the AI has converged to because it was good. Why was it good? It was good because it worked. It worked because it was different enough from the way that most people wrote. Most people write, they ramble, they write, they don't pay attention to how it sounds on the receiving end. They don't have, a good enough understanding or thinking about what their words are meant to evoke in the reader. They're just writing for writing's sake, right? It's actually like, I think good copywriting is about good communication. The good copywriters, one of the things that they did really well was they were able to stay differentiated enough from the way that other people were writing. And now, as the playing field has leveled, that good copy, that has been like the gold standard for good copy, it's getting really old really quickly, like really, really massively quickly. It's like losing its value because of that. So we're actually all at a really interesting point, is that we're developing in real time a blindness to good copywriting, good like gold standard copywriting. And I think like the really interesting thing to note is like right now we're still at the conscious phase of this. We're still able to catch ourselves thinking like, oh gosh, like, as we're reading something, not another like AI generated piece of content. Ugh, I'll skip this. Like roll your eyes. Like you will still see it and be cognizant of the fact that you are being served AI slop and choose consciously to not consume it. But what is the next thing, okay, that's going to happen? And we know that this happens, right? Like this is what ad blindness is about. This is like the law of shitty click-throughs. This is it in action, right? Is like the next thing that happens is it skips your conscious thinking altogether and you're just blind to it. You will not even see the AI generated slop because it will just hit as like more of the same, something that you don't need to pay attention to, something that's like old. Like the novelty of the way that good copy used to be able to hook us, it's losing its ability to do that very quickly because of this phenomenon, right? And whereas like, if you think about ad blindness, this is where it's actually like massively different, and why this is why people who write copy really need to take note, okay? Because where in the traditional, right, like classic ad blindness, like if you think about the banner ads of like the 90s or the like beginning of the internet, or like those used to be there was novelty to them. They used to work. Did you know that? Like those like flashy, clearly like spammy banner ads, people used to feel excited about them, like back when the internet began. I know I don't look that old, but I am, okay? Like that was exciting, until it wasn't anymore. And even today, even if you don't have like ad blocker enabled, you will still not see the majority of those ads, just because your brain is already pre-filtering them for you, because it's just that's ad blindness, okay? The novelty wears off, and that's it. What's interesting is that in the cases of like new visual stuff in marketing, like I think a lot of other parts of marketing had to deal with blindness and like audience like fatigue of those different like gimmicks and elements and things like that. They're like used to it because they've always had to deal with it, and they always had to like reinvent themselves. And in many ways, like that, this is why we say that, marketing is an arms race, because you're always trying to, like, people are always becoming conditioned to the novel, and you always have to come up with the next thing that's going to like break through the apathy of the audience. But like copywriting, I want to carefully say this, but has largely been immune to these like very fast-paced abandonment trends, because there's never been something as disruptive as what we're seeing now. Now, it's not that the copy like has not evolved as a profession, as an industry, as like best practices, as like what's working. For sure it has. Like if you read copy from like the greats, it's considered like old school, the fathers of copywriting, it's like massively cringy. It is like a very, it all sounds like an infomercial. Like it's very blatant, very like blunt marketing, right? So yes, people have like found ways to become more subtle and things like that, but I don't think we've ever seen a need for as sharp a shift in how we approach copy as quickly as we're seeing right now. Like we need to both change a lot and we need to change it fast, right? Because now it's not like we just need to make it a little more subtle. It's that everything that we've been optimizing for as copywriters, like that golden standard that we kept, moving towards, that golden standard has now been made redundant by AI. So we're entering an era, and this is actually what I find really interesting. We're entering an era where sounding human, sounding a little bit unpolished, sounding authentic, sounding more like you, sounding like the opposite of AI, that's what gets noticed. And the more AI generated stuff out there is, the more I predict that's going to be true. And I personally welcome it. I think that it's a really cool shift to notice, first of all. I also think it's going to really separate out the mediocre copywriters who were pretending to be good from the actual masters. Because here's the thing, like the way that this affects different people, okay, this shift towards like in AI capabilities and the ability of AI to write really, really good copy, but like now it sounds like everybody else. It's been especially good for the people who could not write at all. Like for those people, it's a godsend because, hey, now I can, like, with my non-existent skills, I can create something that sounds like a really good copywriter. For the people who are either the masters or the ones who are the people pretending to be the masters, it's different, right? And this is where it's really, I predict we're going to be seeing a really big gap opening up between these two people, which I welcome because I think, the more you can separate like imitation from the real thing, the better. Like I'm for it, but that's just me and like my like strive for truth. Okay. And the reason why I believe this is true is because let's think about like what these two groups of people have done. I'm not talking the people who like don't know nothing, the like lay people. I'm talking about the people who are working at it and like, who are doing copywriting. What have the experts and masters done this whole time? They have studied copy deeply in order to master it, right? They have studied it. I think this is the key. Like they studied it in order to master it. Whereas the other group of people have studied it in order to copy it, in order to copy its packaging well enough to be passable as good copy. And that has worked fine until now, right? But they didn't take the time, as the masters have, to really, really study the underlying principles of what even made this good copy work, right? The human psychology, element? What makes people move? What makes people decide to do something? What makes people pay attention? What makes people ignore something? What is like not the turns of phrase, not the writing itself, right? Not the words that you use. What are the principles? Because the master copywriters, they weren't like good writers. They were good students of people. And the ones who just like studied it in order to copy it, they're a little bit screwed right now. They're a little bit screwed right now because they won't be able to differentiate themselves in the same way, right? Because all they know is how to sound like that gold standard that I discussed before, but they don't know how to adapt, certainly not so quickly. And this is not to say, that they can't learn it. They definitely can, but they need to start investing in learning the correct things and not just like finding someone who's great and copying them, but actually distilling the reasons why underneath, right? This is like part of mastery. And it's also not to suggest that every single master copywriter will also be excellent at adapting, because a lot of people are just not good at change. They're like, I predict that a lot of predictions I'm making here. But truly, like, I predict that there's going to be a lot of people who are, that doesn't matter if they're like the masters or the copiers of the masters, like the imitators. There's going to just be people who are going to try to cling to the past and be like, why can't it just be easy like last time? And like, kind of fight reality and like not acknowledge that that change is even needed and in order. But whatever, like those people, that's a mindset thing. And like those kind of people, they don't survive. And the only reason, they've probably made it this far is because, as I said, it's a craft that just has had very, very little disruption in the last, I don't know how many years. Like, it's just been a really slow to change craft. And now we are called as copywriters to elevate very, very, very quickly into something that, like, the new gold standard isn't clear. But it's clear that you have to do something to sound different. So my prediction is that it's going to be the unpolished, the human. Alex Hormozi talks a lot about the stuff that only, the story that only you can tell, right? So like your actual lived human experience that you can call on as, either writing about yourself, or if you're writing for someone else, then like being able to pull that out of them and like telling it in a compelling way that's still very like personal. And the good copywriters are going to be able to do this while still relying on those timeless principles that they know because they're the masters. So those are my thoughts, my insights, and my predictions about AI created copywriting and the world of copywriting itself and where it's going. I want to be so clear. I am not anti-AI at all. I am not a technophobe. I do not fear these things. I welcome the singularity. But also, I think it's important to be aware and understand these trends. I'm also not saying that AI is like useless in writing and copywriting and marketing. Not at all. It's very useful. But again, you have to be aware of what is happening, and like the people who are master copywriters, I'm not suggesting they're going to be writing everything by hand. They will still be able to use help from like AI assisted basically copy, but the underlying principles, the editing, the auditing, like there needs to be so much expert supervision happening in these things so that it can actually work in the way that we're intending it to, which is to capture people's attention and then convert it, when it comes to copywriting and marketing in general. So I would love to know your thoughts. I will try to include a link to that post that I mentioned that my mentor made, so that you guys can also have access to like basically a crowdsourced list of things, like phrases not to use, or that you can either use yourself or feed into your AI's custom instructions. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments, any questions, your take on this. Like if you think any of these predictions are wrong, or you agree, or you have a different take on it. Maybe you have a different prediction or a different read on the situation right now. I would super love to hear from you. And that's it. Till next time.